Empress Melara's taloned fingers tightened around the crystalline treaty seal as High Counselor Vesper thrust it forward, the chamber's vaulted arches echoing with the hush of assembled nobles. "The Ra'atra Armada masses at the Veil Nebula, Sovereign One," Vesper intoned, his iridescent scales flickering under the throne room's lumen veils. "This pact with the Terran Republic demands your union, a consort from their ranks, to seal our flank. Refusal invites succession chaos. The fleet cannot hold alone." Melara's violet eyes narrowed, her crest flattening against her regal helm of woven mithril. The divine mandate pulsed in her veins, a hereditary fire that had forged the Cathari sovereignty from stellar ash, yet here it bent to galactic calculus. She rose from the obsidian throne, her armored robes whispering like distant storms. "The stars witness no such debasement. I am no broodmare for alien flesh." Murmurs rippled through the council, conservatives like Lord Kalor shifting with veiled approval, progressives like Marshal Thorne exchanging grim glances. Vesper bowed low, but his voice held steel. "The High Council stands unanimous, Empress. The Royal Fleet's admirals concur. Ra'atra claws encircle 3 core worlds. This ceremonial consort ensures Terran shields and munitions flow freely. State necessity binds us." Her gaze swept the chamber, landing on the holographic treaty projection, Terran signatures in stark script beside Cathari runes, a clause glowing like a venom barb. Union of houses through designated attaché, contempt coiled in her chest, hot and precise. To wed a soft-skinned human bereft of crest or talon would fracture court orthodoxy, invite whispers of weakness. Yet the projections flickered, Ra'atra dreadnoughts, 9 against her 12, supply lines fraying. "I decline," she declared, voice a blade's edge. "Find another path." The council erupted in controlled discord. Jonah Ree, the human in question, stood at the chamber's periphery, flanked by Terran aides in crisp naval blues, his posture straight but unassuming, base a mask of professional restraint. He stepped forward unbidden, inclining his head to Melara with a gesture that mimicked Cathari deference imperfectly. "Empress, on behalf of the Terran Republic, I too must refuse this honor. My role is attaché, not consort. Duty does not demand personal sacrifice beyond protocol." Vesper's scales bristled. "Necessity overrides preference, Captain. The treaty activates upon acceptance." Melara met Ree's eyes, brown, steady, lacking the predatory gleam of her kin, and saw no bravado, only quiet resolve. A human, dossier freshly flagged by Palace Intelligence, former close combat specialist, bare-handed operative in frontier skirmishes, unremarkable on vids, yet whispers hinted at anomalies. She silenced the chamber with a raised talon. "The Union proceeds as symbol alone. No deeper bond. Captain Ree joins my retinue under strict palace jurisdiction." The council bowed as one, but tension lingered like plasma afterburn. Cycles later, during the formal retinue inspection in the Grand Armory, Melara strode the vaulted halls lined with fusion lances and grav shields, her Marshal Thorne at her side. Ree trailed the procession, his boots silent on mithril plating, eyes scanning weapon racks with casual interest. Cathari guards flanked him, crests high in wary display. Protocol demanded it, after the treaty's ink dried. A young guard, Ensign Lirak, faltered mid-drill, his lance discharging a wild grav pulse that shattered a display case. Shards flew. Worse, the feedback loop ignited a secondary charge in the adjacent rack. Alarms wailed as plasma coils destabilized, the air thickening with ozone. "Containment!" Thorne bellowed, lunging for a manual override. But Lirak, panic glazing his eyes, charged blindly toward the cascade, talon drawn as if to wrestle the malfunctioned bear-clawed, a reckless bid for redemption. Ree moved like water parting stone, no shout, no flourish. He sidestepped into the guard's path, bare hands flashing. One palm struck Lirak's wrist, redirecting the talon harmlessly. The other hooked behind the ensign's knee, twisting momentum into a controlled fall. Ree absorbed the impact on his shoulder, pinning the thrashing Cathari with knee and elbow, voice calm amid the sparks. "Easy." Breach contained. "Stand down." The plasma coils hissed to quiescence as Thorne slapped the override. Lirak gasped, crest flattened in shock, while guards froze, lances half raised. Melara halted paces away, her pulse quickening despite herself. The human had subdued a fully armored Cathari, 200 kilos of muscle and reflex, In under 3 heartbeats, no weapons, no armor breach, efficiency bordered on artistry, leverage over brute force, anticipation woven into motion. Reflexive luck? Perhaps. Humans were reputed adaptable, but this felt deliberate. She approached, voice regal. Ice. Captain Ree. An uninvited display. He released Lirak smoothly, rising with a nod to the ensign, who scrambled up murmuring gratitude, and dusted his uniform. Instinct, Empress. No intent to overstep. Your guard safe? That's what matters. Thorn's eyes narrowed, mandibles clicking appraisal. Impressive restraint. Lirak would have shredded himself. Myalara waved dismissal, though her mind catalogued. Dossier confirmed. Close combat savant, yet he downplayed it as instinct. Humble or cunning? See to the armory. Captain, you will accompany. The incident rippled through court whispers, fueling the storm that brewed in the high chamber that eve. Lord Kalor, conservative archon with scales etched in ancient rites, rose amid the council's crescent pews, clutching a forbidden codex scroll. Sovereign One, this union profanes the mandate. Codex Primera, verse 12. No crustless blood shall mingle with the divine line, lest the stars reclaim their void. The human taints our purity. Ratra laughs at our desperation. Gasps echoed, Vesper paled, but Kalor pressed, holographic law text blooming around him. Invoke the Prohibition Edict. Dissolve the treaty on sacred grounds, or face orthodoxy's fracture. The fleet's captains murmur already. Myalara's throne looms shadowed, her talons drumming the armrest. A rare crack in propriety, swiftly schooled. Kalor's gambit was legal venom. Success would unravel the pact, invite Ryatra invasion, and her own deposition. Failure would embolden radicals. Ree stood silent at her flank, invited as treaty symbol, his presence a living provocation. She leaned forward, voice thunder-veiled. The Codex binds, Lord Kalor, yet survival supersedes. The edict requires consensus of 7 archons. Who joins your folly? Silence. Thorn shifted loyally. Vesper demurred. Kalor faltered, but Melara struck. Decree issued. Captain Jonah Ree falls under full palace jurisdiction. No autonomy beyond my retinue. He symbolizes the treaty. Visible. Contained. Violations of protocol forfeit his status. Kalor bowed stiffly, defeated but seething. The council dispersed in murmurs, the legal threat blunted, for now. Alone in her strategium later, Melara unsealed Ree's full dossier via Neuralink, lumen veils casting her face in cold blue. Close combat virtuoso. Bare-handed takedowns against Vorak berserkers, endurance runs through Nulgrav storms. Anomalies piled. Humans juggled tactics mid-firefight. Red subtle crest flicks others missed, yet he claimed instinct. Martial. She summoned via comb, Thorn materializing in hollow form. Monitor the humans ceaselessly. Quarters adjacent to mine. Access logged. He remains symbol, nothing more. Thorn's crest dipped. As commanded, Sovereign, though his intervention saved face today. Lirak trains under him now by the ensign's request. Myalara severed the link, staring at the Rayatra projections encroaching like ink in water. Pragmatism stirred, a reassessment, guarded. The human was no mere protocol puppet. Competence lurked, threatening court certainties, yet duty demanded she wield it. For the sovereignty, she would test this instinct, bend it to her will. Ree, in his assigned quarters, unpacked a single kit bag with methodic care, unaware of the scrutiny. A soft chime announced palace surveillance, expected. He glanced at the crest-etched walls, adapting already. Cathari ergonomics skewed tall, but a folded mat sufficed for rest. Duty first, the rest would follow. The envoy's stylus hovered above the treaty holopad, its tip glowing with the weight of 1,000 patrol vectors. Joint command in the Vale sectors, Ambassador Lyra Voss intoned, her human eyes steady on Empress Melara's throne, with Captain Ree as your co-commander on the royal flagship. Terran vessels integrate fully, no vetoes, no proxies. Murmurs rippled through the assembled court. Nobles' crests flickering in the vaulted hall's light, as scrutiny pinned Melara like a blade. She inclined her head a fraction, her voice silk over steel. The sovereignty accepts, with the understanding that Cathari primacy endures in matters of fleet doctrine. Her fingers tightened on the armrests, carved with the entwined serpents of her line. Public eyes bored into her. every concession a crack in the divine facade. Voss nodded, sealing the terms with a press that echoed like a gauntlet thrown. The chamber exhaled, but Melara felt the fracture widen. Tradition whispered of purity and command, not this shared yoke with soft-skinned upstarts. That evening the banquet hall thrummed with crystal chimes, and the low hum of restraint. Melara sat elevated at the high table, her gown a cascade of obsidian scales that caught the light like void armor. Jonah reoccupied the consort's seat beside her, his uniform crisp, movements measured as he sampled a Cathari vintage without flinching at its neural sting. Nobles circled like predators scenting weakness, their frills pulsing in agitation. Lord Varrock of House Thalor rose first, his chalice raised in mock toast. "Two unions forged in haste," he drawled, eyes locking on Ree. "Yet tradition demands proof of worth. Human, I challenge you to the rite of blades. Ceremonial, of course. Show us your medal." Laughter slithered through the hall, frills flaring in anticipation. The rite was theater, but lethal if pressed. A human's frailty would shatter the treaty's optics overnight. Ree set down his glass unhurried, his gaze sweeping the room, not defiant but appraising, as if charting currents in a storm. Melara tensed, ready to intervene. Humans were impulsive, records said, their biology a riot of unchecked hormones. But he smiled faintly, rising with fluid economy. "Lord Varrock, I accept the spirit of your challenge. Blades are for killing fields, not feast halls." Instead, he gestured to the dueling circle etched in the floor, then to a servant bearing platters of razor fruit, thorny orbs that split to reveal blades within. "A test of patience. We each claim one. First to bleed concedes." Varrock's frills snapped rigid, amusement curdling to unease. The hall stilled. This was no rote deflection. It twisted the rite into something novel, turning spectacle against itself. Varrock snatched a fruit, its spines drawing a bead of violet blood before he even split it. Ree selected his with care, fingers steady, rotating it to find the seam. Patience incarnate, waiting out the noble's haste. Whispers grew. "He reads the grain. Impossible for an off-worlder." The fruit parted in Ree's hands without a nick. Flesh pristine. Varrock split jaggedly, spines raking deep. He hissed, chalice forgotten, as Ree offered a cloth. "Restraint wins more wars than blades, my lord." The hall erupted in disconcerted murmurs, nobles exchanging glances, frills dimming. Lady Eshra of the outer houses leaned to her aid. He anticipated the flaw. Humans don't. They can't. Melara watched, pulse quickening despite herself. Not bravado, but calculation, turning peril to lesson, without a drop spilled. Later, in her private sanctum, Melara paced the mosaic floors, the marshal's report scroll hovering at eye level. "Intelligence update, your radiance," General Corrin rumbled, his armored bulk filling the archway. "Ree's dossier, re-evaluated per your prior directive. No mere protocol drone. Field operative, Terran Black Ops. Disarmed hostiles, barehanded in the Orion skirmishes. Psychological profiles note adaptability off the charts. Learns Cathari command cants in hours, not cycles." She halted, serpents on her throne globe seeming to writhe. Unpredictability, yes, but directed, like a blade honed in shadow. Her assumptions of human chaos frayed. This one wielded patience as a weapon. "Deepen the probe," she commanded, voice level, cross-reference with Veil Sector Sims, "and summon Captain Ree. He will attend me at tomorrow's flag ceremony. Flank position, full protocol." I would see this composure tested in the open glare. Corrin saluted, frills smoothing in approval, but his eyes held a flicker of doubt. "The house's murmur, Empress. Varrick's display will be addressed." She dismissed him with a gesture, mind already mapping the board. Ree's deflection had bought space, but tradition coiled tighter. Dawn crested the spires as the flag ceremony unfolded on the grand balcony, banners of the sovereignty snapping in the ion winds. Melara stood at the podium. Rhea paced to her right, close enough for whispers, far enough for propriety. Protocol demanded perfection. Salute the fleet icons. Intone the oaths. Endure the hollow drone swarm broadcasting to every outpost. One misstep, and the treaty's fragility would shatter. The winds howled, whipping Rhee's hair, but he held statue still, eyes forward, syncing his breaths to the Cathari cadence without prompt. Drones buzzed closer, lenses whirring, a noble sabotage. Melara's guards tensed, but Rhee shifted minutely, not flinching, but angling his body to shield her from a rogue gust that snatched at her crest veil. Subtle, seamless. She caught his eye mid-oath. No triumph there, only focus. The crowd below. Dignitaries, fleet officers watched rapt, frills twitching at the human's unflagging poise. As the final banner unfurled, a calm chime pierced her earpiece. Petition filed radiance. Corin's voice crackled. Lord Draven of House 4F leads. Tradition-minded coalition. They invoke the annulment clause. No consort unfit by blood or blade may bind the throne. 24 houses signatory. Public session tomorrow. Draven, the rival suitor. Her late cousin's shadow, ever hungry for the serpent crown. Melara's jaw set as the ceremony closed. Ree falling in step beside her through the withdrawing corridors. Tradition mobilized as opposition now, a factional blade aimed at the treaty's heart. The rebuke came at midday in the petition hall, crystal domes amplifying every echo. Draven stood foremost among the petitioners, his house guard arrayed like thorns, frills erect in righteous fervor. Empress, the ancients decree purity in alliance, he proclaimed, scroll unrolling to display sigils from lesser houses. This human upends our fleet's soul, annul the union, restore Cathari honor. Murmurs swelled, eyes darting to Ree at her side, silent sentinel. Melara ascended the dais, her presence quelling the din like a gravefield. Lord Draven, she said, voice carrying the throne's unyielding timber, your petition honors tradition, yet ignores the sovereignty's peril. The Veil sectors burn, joint command secures them, not annuls them. The union stands, challenged only by those who fear shared victory. Draven's frills quivered, coalition shifting uneasily, optics preserved, the crowd's gaze turning skeptical on him. She signaled dismissal, the hall emptying under her gaze, but as Ray turned to follow, she murmured, low enough for his ears alone. You held form impeccably. The winds were unforeseen. Propriety cracked just a hair. Acknowledgement, not praise. Protocol is duty or radiance, he replied evenly, a ghost of that banquet smile. Winds pass. In her strategy vault that night, Melara activated expanded surveillance webs, drones on Draven's estates, taps on Vorath comms. Coalitions festered. Varrock's banquet sleight had seeded doubt, Draven harvesting it. Yet Ree's presence lingered in her calculations, a variable no longer dismissible. Humans bent protocol into tests they passed unmarked. Tradition opposed, but this alliance, it might endure. Corin reported via secure link. Surveillance live. Draven meets Thalor tonight. Annulment escalates. Mayala Ranad, eyes on the fleet sims where Ree's projected tactics overlaid Cathari lines. Joint command loomed, scrutiny fiercer. Protocol had become the true arena. She would watch him closer still. The chamber's alert chimes sliced through the hologramic haze, crimson overlays pulsing across the fleet projections like fresh wounds. Empress Melara straightened on her throne dais, her iridescent carapace plates shifting with restrained tension as the emergency council materialized in hololinks. Fleet Admiral Vexer first, his mandibled face etched with fury, flanked by tactical aides and the shadowy protocol feeds piping in Captain Jonah Ree from the adjacent annex. Raiders punched through the outer pickets at 040 standard. Vexar growled, his crest flaring in agitation. 3 corvettes, probing for weak seams, losses. 2 interceptors vaporized, crews unrecovered. Under treaty strictures, we deploy joint assets now, or the alliance fractures before ink dries. Mylara's gaze flicked to Ree's feed, where the human sat poised amid Cathari sim interfaces, his plain uniform a stark contrast to the jeweled consoles. Corin's warning still echoed, Draven and Thalor scheming annulment. But this raid demanded immediacy. Joint deployment is ordered, she intoned, voice a silken blade. Captain Ree, your assessment. Speak. Jonah leaned forward, fingers dancing over the unaugmented slate he'd jury-rigged. No neural links, just raw projection. Standard Cathari patrols form rigid lattices, efficient for fleet cohesion, but predictable. Raiders exploit the gaps with microjumps. He tapped a sequence, overlaying erratic, weaving paths across the sim curves born of instinct, not algorithms. This pattern scatters our signatures, feints into null zones, heuristics from old Terran wet nav tactics. Lower exposure, bait and blitz. Casualties drop 30% in sims. Vexar's mandibles clacked in disbelief, his aides murmuring through subvocals. Unaugmented, No quantum forecasting? This is improvisation, not strategy. It risks cohesion. Model it, Mylara commanded, her tone broking no fracture in propriety. Vexar's crest wilted fractionally, but he complied, the sim whirring as Rhee's lines integrated. Vectors bloomed, raider paths collapsing under simulated fire, Cathari losses halved. Her first concession to human whims, a tactical gamble aired before the court feeds, protocol cracked, just enough. Projections hold. Vexar admitted through gridded plates, eyes narrowing at Rhee, but unproven and void. Then prove it. Mylara rose, her shadow rippling across the chamber. Captain Rhee will lead Recon Lance Theta, mixed unit 5 Cathari pilots under his direct. Deploy within the hour. Fleet Admiral, synchronize the weave. Court streams live, let them witness treaty steel. Rhee met her gaze steadily, no triumph in his posture, only the quiet resolve of duty. Understood, Empress. I'll need Lieutenant Sierra's squadron. Her reflexes pair well with the curves. Vexar hesitated, then nodded curtly. Links severed. The chamber emptied to echoes. Hours blurred into void black tension aboard the ethereal Lance. Rhee's recon corvette slicing through the border nebula. Mylara tracked from the Sovereign Bridge. Feeds immersive. Cathari pilots' crests twitching in the cramped cockpit. Sierra's voice edging panic over comms as raider signatures ghosted their flank. Contacts bearing 040. Micro jump inbound. Evasive lattice failing. Rhee's voice cut through. Calm as fabricated gravity. Hold weave, Lieutenant. Sierra, throttle to 80%. Roll starboard on my mark. You two. He nodded to the wing pair, reading their frantic mandible flares through the visor feeds. Breathe sync. Terran drill. In, out. Focus the gap. Mark. Sierra's craft bucked, but she obeyed, crest flattening in reluctant trust. The human's pattern held, feints drawing raiders into crossfire kill boxes. A corvette bloomed silent fire, debris scattering like startled spores. Cheers rippled through Cathari channels, raw and unfiltered. Pattern locked. Sierra transmitted, voice laced with wonder. Raiders scattering. Human. It works. Mylara's plates hummed faintly, a private vibration. Rhee's heuristics, raw pattern sight, no augments, had steadied them where Cathari wrote fractured. Not superiority, adaptation. Seamless. Then the feeds glitched. Public streams ignited. Leaked helmet cams. Rhee center frame. Barking orders to Cathari troops. Weave tighter. Eyes on the gap. Headlines screamed across court nets. Alien puppetry. Purity endangered. Draven's factional seal watermark faint but damning. Xenophobic outrage swelled. Petitions flooding for annulment. Her console chimed. Corin, leak traced to Thalor's aides. Protests massing at the spire. Mylara's mandibles set firm. No fracture. She activated the Sovereign broadcast, visage regal amid the storm. Behold Recon Lance Theta's triumph, she declared. Splicing Rhee's feed live. Raiders routed. Cathari cheers unedited. Captain Rhee leads by treaty writ, preserving Cathari lives with valor none can deny. The leaker, Thalor's underling, is arrested this hour. Question him. Purity endures not in isolation, but alliance forged in void fire. Court feeds pivoted, outrage fracturing to murmurs, then nods from tactical casts. Vexar linked privately. Losses minimal. Your concession held, Empress. Rhee's voice patched through post-mission, sweat beading his brow amid the cockpit glow. Endurance unbroken after 16 void hours. Unit intact. Raiders repelled. Sierra requests debrief with me. Says our weave needs hybrid tweaks. Mylara permitted a ghost of warmth in her reply. Granted. Return to Palace Vector. As ethereal Lance docked, court holos swarmed, nobles' crests dipping in fresh scrutiny. Whispers of the human sight threading the gentry. Protocol's arena sharpened. Draven's annulment ploy blunted, but joint command loomed eternal. She watched Rhee disembark, Sierra at his flank, her crest angled in unfeigned camaraderie. Tactics on the field forced the court to witness, a human leading Cathari soldiers, not as consort, but command. In the antechamber hush, Rhee approached, saluting crisply. Debrief? Mylara inclined her head, propriety veiling the intrigue's pull. Walk with me. Explain the heuristics. Your unaugmented weave intrigues even Vexar. He fell in step, humble gait belying the void's proof. Just patterns, Empress. Terrans see them in chaos. Habit from wet worlds. Syrah's got instincts we can layer in. Your pilots anticipate microshifts better than any sim. Mutual, then. Her plates stilled. The Alliance breathed. Stronger for the crack. Public streams replayed the route endlessly. Cathari analysts poring over Rhee's curves, research queries spiking on Terran heuristics. Draven's meeting with Thalor would falter now. Arrests rippled outward. Yet Maelara's gaze lingered on the human at her side, his quiet competence a mirror to her own steel. Scrutiny fiercer, indeed, but shared. Lieutenant Syrah lingered post-debrief, mandibles clicking softly. Captain, your orders steadied us. Never thought soft skins could read void drift like that. Rhee smiled faintly, wiping console residue from his hands. You held the weave tighter than I projected. Cathari edge and cohesion. Let's blend it. Syrah's crest bobbed, respect dawning. Maelara observed from the dais, the personal thread weaving through politics. Duty bound them. Capability forged the bond. Council reconvened virtually as Lance crews rotated out, Vexar grudging. Projections validated. Human tactics merit codex review. Integrate, Maelara decreed. Under Ray's oversight, the Admiral's pause spoke volumes, dismissal yielding to protocol's evolution. Outside, Raider probes silenced, borders held. But Court eyes burned brighter, fixed on the human whose ordinary sight rewove their stars. The High Priestess Vespera rose from her council seat, her iridescent robes whispering like a gathering storm, and leveled her gaze at Maelara. Empress, the sacred codex forbids unions that dilute the divine bloodline. I demand a doctrinal review, here, now, before this Terran shadow pollutes our throne. Petition the full council for censure, lest heresy unravel the sovereignty. Maelara's fingers tightened on the arm of her throne, the chamber's vaulted crystal dome refracting the accusation into 1,000 accusing shards. Whispers rippled from the assembled lords, Admiral Korath shifting uneasily. Trade Minister Lyra's mandibles clicking in unease. Contempt for the human consort had festered since the treaty's ink dried, but Vespera's strike aimed at the heart, her dynasty's sanctity. Priestess Maelara replied, voice steel over silk, protocol binds us to the Republic's alliance. Your review may proceed, but censure awaits evidence, not fervor. Maelara endured, her mind mapping the fractures. Rival claimants like Lord Draven whispering in temple shadows, raider fleets testing borders emboldened by court division. The human, Captain Jonah Rhee, lingered at the chamber's edge, posture impeccable, eyes scanning readouts on a discreet holopad. Ordinary, they called him. Yet his raid predictions had already spared 3 frigates. A chime pierced the drone, urgent from palace security. Maelara silenced Vespera with a raised hand. Private wing breach. Guards mobilizing. Her pulse quickened. That wing housed her personal archives, treaty seals, her unarmored rest. She dismissed the session with a flick, striding toward the lift, council trailing like hounds. In the shadowed private wing, Jonah moved without sound, his breath steady as the infiltrator slipped past outer wards. The figure, cloaked in adaptive weave, vibro dagger glinting, froze at a faint scuff from the human's boot. Jonah had been reviewing perimeter logs, noting the anomaly. A service drone's path deviating by 2.7 degrees, too precise for malfunction. No fatigue clouded his focus. 12 hours on duty felt routine. The assailant lunged, blade arcing for the archive vault. Jonah sidestepped, bare hand snapping out to seize the wrist mid-thrust, twist, leverage, disarming in a blur of controlled force. The dagger clattered, the infiltrator countered with a knee strike, but Jonah absorbed it, pivoting to pin the arm behind, knee pressing the neck. Yield, he said calmly, voice low. No triumph. The figure thrashed, pheromone emitters hissing Cathari rage scent. But Jonah held, multitasking, scanning for accomplices via wrist implant, signaling guards silently. Boots thundered. Palace guards burst in, plasma lances leveled. They stared. The human, unarmored, subduing elite saboteur barehanded. No breaks in his stance after what scans later confirmed as a 0.8 second intercept window. Secure the perimeter, Jonah directed evenly, releasing only as restraints clicked. The lead guard, Sergeant Thal, mandibles agape, muttered, Terran, how? Our trainers need weeks for that hold. Maelara arrived as they hauled the infiltrator away, her gaze locking on Jonah. Protocol screamed arrest, foreign national in restricted breach zone, but the vault stood intact. No alarms tripped beyond his alert. Vespera hovered at her elbow, hissing, "See, the Alliance breeds peril. Detain him." Mylara's jaw set. This human had just proven what words could not. Revised security protocols. Effective immediately. She commanded Thal. Integrate Terran scans galaxy-wide. Captain Ree consults on implementation. No arrests. His intervention preserved us. Thal saluted, eyes flickering with reassessment. Vespera recoiled, but Mylara pressed on, propriety's facade thinning to reveal calculation. Jonah met her look, humble nod acknowledging the order. No boast. Whispers spread, the humans' ordinary reflexes outpacing their augmented elite. By Eve's cycle, Mylara summoned a restricted council in her antechamber. Korath, Lyra, Thal, and Jonah. Vespera barred at protocol's edge. "Captain," she said, gesturing him forward, "your observations on operations, provisional trust, earned in shadows." Jonah inclined his head, projecting holomaps of recent raids. "Cathari vectors excel in fleet cohesion. Your phalanxes hold lines no human navy matches. But patterns here. Raiders feint low orbit. Probe hyperlanes, multitask defenses. Drones on adaptive patrol, crews rotating for endurance." Lyra leaned in, mandibles parting in surprise. "Endurance? Our shifts cap at 8 cycles. Fatigue drops accuracy 40%. Jonah shrugged modestly. "Humans manage longer without dip. Biology, training. Combine it. Your precision with sustained watch." Korath grunted approval, cross-referencing data. Even he, skeptic, noted the novel linkage raider supply chains mirroring ancient Cathari trade routes, a pattern their siloed analysts missed. Then Thal's report shattered the calm. Infiltrators' neural implants traced to Lord Draven's houseguard. Assassination plot, Empress. Poisons keyed to your biology. Vault breach for succession manifests. The Alliance is the trigger. Draven claims divine mandate voids impure pacts. Mylara's blood chilled. Draven, her cousin, harbored old grudges, his fleet loyalists chafing at treaty concessions. Vulnerabilities exposed. No air beyond her. Orthodoxy weaponized against the Union. Vespera would feast on this. Urgent countermeasures. Mylara ordered. Double palace cordons. Fleet redeploy to Draven's sector. "Captain Ree, your input on covert traces?" Jonah nodded, pulling threads without pause. Infiltrators weave, Terran black market mods, but Cathari pheromones. Insider leak. Cross-check Draven's manifests with raid timings. Patterns align. Lyra's eyes widened. Her trade logs, siloed from military, suddenly vital. Collaborative threads wove tight. Mylara rose, authority unyielding. Authorize covert inquiry. Thal, embed agents in Draven's ports. Korath, shadow his fleet. Lyra, audit flows. She turned to a comlink, Vespera's image flickering in. "Priestess, stand down your petitions. Evidence mounts against rivals, not allies. The human's vigilance exposes what doctrine blinds." Vespera bristled, crests flaring. "Empress, the Codex. Pending proof." Mylara cut in, voice brooking no fracture. "Defend the throne, not divide it." The link died, council exhaled. Jonah stood quiet, but Mylara caught Thal's sidelong glance, dismissal cracking to curiosity. Korath murmured to Lyra, "Terrans, they endure. Adapt. Like us, but layered." As they dispersed, Mylara lingered, meeting Jonah's gaze. "You moved before guards, bare-handed, not protocol." He smiled faintly, humble. "Duty, Empress. Saw the anomaly, acted. Your systems are solid, just needed a fresh angle. No arrogance, only partnership seed. Outside, probes still tested borders, but within, contempt eroded. Draven's shadow loomed, yet for the first time the Alliance felt fortified, not by force but by unforeseen competence blooming in the dark. Court eyes burned still, but now with questions. What other ordinary feats hid in human quiet? Plasma bolts scorched the air, turning the rocky outcrop into a furnace of splintered stone. Captain Jonah Ree flattened against the trench wall, his breath steady despite the chaos, eyes scanning the haze for movement. Cathari officers, 3 of them, pinned by mercenary fire from the ridge, clung to their comms, voices sharp with protocol demands for air support that wouldn't arrive in time. Captain Ree maintained position, crackled the fleet command link in his ear. Extraction protocols require... No time, Jonah muttered, already uncoiling a grapple line from his utility belt. Human fingers, calloused from years of unpowered drills, worked the alien rigging with instinctive tweaks. A loop here, a friction knot there, blending Terran fieldcraft with Cathari tensile specs he'd memorized en route. He vaulted the trench lip, boots crunching gravel, zigzagging low as bolts whipped past. One grazed his shoulder, searing fabric but not flesh. He rolled, came up firing his sidearm in controlled bursts to suppress the nearest shooter. The first officer, Lieutenant Vren, gaped through his visor as Jonah slid beside him, clipping the grapple to the man's harness. Human, you violate chain. Chain's dead if we stay. On 3. Jonah's voice cut calm. No bark, just fact. He hauled Vren up, muscles burning but unyielding, using the officer's mass as counterweight to swing toward the trench. A bolt clipped the line. It frayed but held. Is not improvisation buying seconds. Vren dropped safe. Jonah was back out, grabbing the second, a stocky commander whose armor locked in panic mode. Impossible leverage, the commander grunted as Jonah shouldered him piggyback, free-hand snapping shots. Pattern recognition kicked in. Mercenary's fire rhythm was rote, predictable. Pause, reload, fan left. Jonah timed the gap, lunged 20 meters under covering shale slide he'd triggered with a flung rock. Third officer scrambled after, Jonah's multitasked grip yanking her clear as the ridge erupted in their wake. By the time fleet drones arrived, Jonah was binding wounds with scavenged meaty packs, joking dryly in broken Cathari. Next time, we drill your sides improv. The officers stared, mandibles twitching. Cathari didn't improvise under fire. They adhered to grid formations. Bren's probe later logged it. Human endurance ignored fatigue thresholds. Creativity bypassed sim-locked tactics. Ordinary, he called it. Routine. Empress Melara's command chamber thrummed with the council's rising clamor. Holographic borders flickering red where Valak House banners rallied coalitions. Lord Valak himself dominated the projection, his crest pulsing indignation. The Terran taint corrupts our mandate, Majesty. Withdraw their vessels from the Veil Nebula. Annul this farce of union, or face noble exodus. Concessions now, land rights, fleet veto, or we fracture the sovereignty. Murmurs swelled from the assembled houses, Draven's faction nodding subtle approval, his own eyes gleaming from the shadowed dais. Melara's throne loomed central, her iridescent scales unmoving, but inwardly, the fracture lines tugged. Duty bound her to stability. Divine right demanded unyielding front. Yet Jonah's prior bare-handed breach lingered. A crack in propriety's armor. A calm chime pierced the din, urgent, from the border skirmish. Melara silenced it with a raised claw, but the feed auto-deployed, grainy drone footage of the ridge, officers extracted amid mercenary rout. And there, the human, hauling Cathari twice his bulk, bare under fire, no exosuit, no drone assist. Her breath caught, mandibles parting fractionally. The chamber fell silent as the hollow looped. Valak blustered, coincidence, majesty, fleet precision. Captain Ree, Melara interjected, voice like tempered crystal. Interrupting the debate mid-breath, all eyes snapped to her. He improvised extraction, manual, under direct fire. Save Commander Thalix, Lieutenant Vren, and Captain Sira. Key to our regional hold. Preserved control, Valak House now questions. Her gaze swept the lords, softening visibly at the edges, a rare thaw. Jonah's form on hollow moved with unassuming grace. No boast, just action. Contempt eroded further. This was no protocol puppet. Draven leaned forward, voice silk over steel. A fluke, Empress. Humans lack our neural links. Reevaluate Terran methods, she commanded. Claws tapping throne arm, finality ringing. Incorporate their anomaly protocols into drills. Captain Ree joins as tactical advisor. Official writ, effective now. Gasps rippled. Elevation from consort to advisor pierced court veils, thrusting him into their nexus. Proximity sharpened. Shared briefs. Strategy hollows. Her chamber's annex. Personal currents stirred beneath politics. His humility mirrored her discipline. A bridge unasked. Jonah arrived within the hour, summoned, his uniform singed but stance impeccable. Melara dismissed attendants, leaving them amid glowing tactical webs. You acted outside channels again, she said, formality cracking into query. Duty saw the gap, Empress. Your officer's grid held the line. I just bridged it. His eyes met hers. Steady, no presumption. Pattern recognition in his glance, reading her softening posture, the subtle mandible flex of respect. She nodded, assigning him a console beside her dais, advised directly. Show us these fresh angles. Partnership seated deeper, human resilience weaving into Cathari steel. Weeks blurred into fortified rhythm, Jonah's inputs yielding sim gains, hybrid maneuvers outpacing pure doctrine. Volek grumbled concessions, coalition fraying as border holds solidified, but Draven's shadow coiled tighter. Postponed investiture loomed, public right to seal the union amid fragile peace. The Grand Plaza teemed under aurora veils, nobility in tiered finery. Holocams broadcasting empire-wide, Melara ascended the investiture dais in resplendent obsidian robes, Jonah at her flank per advisor right, closer now. Their briefed glances a silent accord. Chance rose, eternal mandate. Then, chaos. Disguised mercenaries breached perimeter, plasma lances igniting from crowd shadows. One targeted her dais, bolt arcing true. Jonah moved first, instinctive shove redirecting her step, his body intercepting the graze. Guards swarmed. He disarmed the nearest assassin bare-handed, joint locks blending Terran grapples with observed Cathari flows, flipping the merc into custody. Melara's blade flashed, felling another, her form lethal grace. Screams echoed as security nets collapsed the plaza, drones vaporizing the rest. Draven's faction scattered, feigned shock masking guilt. Blood slicked the stone. Melara stood tall, scales agleam, but her claw brushed Jonah's arm. Subtle thanks, propriety fracturing into alliance's fire. Postpone the ceremony, she declared over comms. Voice iron amid the din. Martial law in contested districts. Valak fringes. Draven holds. Joint investigation. My royal guard with Terran protocols. Stability first. Lords bowed via links, awe threading their obeisance. Jonah nodded beside her. Wiping blood, humble as ever. We'll trace the hires, Empress. Patterns match off-world nets. In the aftermath chamber, as probes dissected merc gear, Terran adaptability shining in forensic multitasking, she met his gaze again. You shield without command. He smiled faintly. Teamwork. Your blade cleared my flank. Mutual now, respect forged in violence. Court balance shifted. Whispers turned to queries of human worth. Volek coalitions wavered. Draven's web exposed. The alliance, once brittle, hardened, not by decree, but by a human's quiet extraordinary amid the storm. Probes at borders quieted, but within, power realigned, queen and consort entwined in purpose's unyielding grasp. Alarms shattered the chamber's fragile calm, crimson strobes pulsing like arterial blood across probe-lit walls. Empress Mealara's hand snapped to her comm crystal, the forensic hum of dissecting mercenary gear, drowned by the fleet marshal's frantic relay. Lower ring breached, Majesty. Uprising coordinated. Insurgents in force armor, seizing docks and lifts. High Priestess broadcasts from the sanctum, ancient law invoked. She demands your abdication for divine desecration by the off-worlder. Mylara's crest flared, iridescent scales tightening along her neck in restrained fury. Divine desecration, the old writ, dormant for centuries, weaponized now by priestly ambition and court fractures. Her gaze locked on Jonah Ree, still crouched amid the scattered Terran tech, his fingers pausing mid-multitask on a salvage datapad, eyes already sharpening to the threat. No panic in him, just that infuriating human steadiness. Evacuate non-combatants, she commanded into the crystal, voice a blade of imperial steel. Seal upper bastions. Marshal Vec, rally loyal cohorts to the throne axis. But the lower ring was the citadel's throat. Lose it, and the heart followed. Priestess Elandra's gambit reeked of deeper rot. Whispers of Valak gold had lingered since Draven's web frayed. Jonah rose fluidly, datapad tucked away, his plain Terran tunic unmarked by the earlier fray. Majesty, unarmed sectors first. Civilians bottleneck at the midshafts. I can reroute them through service vents. His words cut clean, no deference beyond protocol, as if plotting her survival was mere duty. She assessed him. No weapon beyond those unyielding hands. Yet his mind already mapped the chaos. You presume to direct my guard? Only if it saves them. A ghost of that faint smile, then he was moving. Comm in hand, barking coordinates to scattered Terran aides in their clipped Republic cant. Evac streams splitting like water around stone. Cathari aides gaped. Her own sentinels hesitated, spines rigid with protocol. The first shockwave rattled the deck, explosives breaching a bulkhead below. Melara's claws flexed on her scepter dagger. Propriety be damned. She would not yield her throne to cloaked priests. With me, Captain Ree. Flank the sanctum approach. They plunged into the fray, her personal guard a wedge of scaled fury at their heels. Lower corridors choked with smoke and screams. Insurgents in mismatched merc-plating. Valic surplus crests filed off. Pouring from seized lifts, Jonah moved like liquid shadow, directing a knot of unarmed Cathari clerks into a side vent with hand signals that bridged language gaps, his voice a steady anchor amid panic. Breathe steady, crawl low, link arms. You've got this. A Cathari aide, spines quivering, clutched his arm. Human, how? You see paths we miss. Jonah just nodded, already pivoting to snatch a fallen stun rod, parrying a lunging rebel barehanded before the guard could close. His strikes were economical, joints hyperextended with surgical precision, dropping foes without killing, preserving her law's veneer even here. Melara's blade sang, cleaving a merc's pauldron as she pressed the flank. Jonah fought at her side, not ahead, his presence a tactical void that drew strikes she dismantled. They synced without words. He feinted low, exposing ribs she shattered. She swept high, leaving throats for his chokeholds. Her guard murmured, "Awe." The off-worlder endures without fatigue, coordinates as if born to our grids. By Priestess Ilandra's voice boomed from Sanctum Vox grills. By the eternal crest, Melara forfeit sovereignty. The alien taints divine blood. Abdicate or face the flame verdict. The throne chamber loomed ahead, its auric gates warped by plasma scores. Insurgents held the approaches, a phalanx of 20, backed by Ilandra's zealots in ritual robes. Melara signaled the breach. Her guard hurled EMP grenades, scrambling shields, but the press was too thick. Jonah's eyes flicked, pattern recognition flashing across his face, connecting vent layouts to rebel stances, service ducts, left flank. 3 insurgents blind there. I take them silent. You hit center with the cohort. No question, just execution. He vanished into shadow before she could countermand, re-emerging amid the foe like a specter, hands blurring in close quarters havoc. One neck snapped with a muffled crack, another's knee buckled under elbow leverage, the third silenced by pressure points no Cathari anatomy teacher charted. Her blade followed, carving the gap wide. They burst into the throne chamber together, Melara's scepter dagger pinning Ilandra's high acolyte to the dais as Jonah subdued the last zealot. The priestess whirled from her invocation altar, crest ablaze with outrage. Sovereign sacrilege, the law, is mine to interpret. Melara's voice thundered, formal poise cracking into raw command. She hauled the acolyte upright, calm crystal live to the fleet. Citadel secured, uprising quelled. Priestess Ilandra, your divine proxies kneel. Control rippled outward, lower ring retaken by coordinated strikes Jonah had seeded en route. Terranades meshing seamlessly with Cathari squads. Gasps echoed from Vox relays, humans juggling evac data, combat feeds, and repair triage without falter, their resilience a quiet storm. In the chamber's hush, courtiers flooded in, spines bowed but eyes darting to Jonah. Dust-streaked, breathing even, guarding her flank unbidden. Lord Draven's rival suitor, Prince Kalar, pushed forward, his Valak-forged rings glinting. Majesty, the off-worlder's hand in this. Chaos proves contamination.
Exile him. Preserve purity.
Melara's gaze iced. Exile? He forged our victory. She turned to the grand dais, treaty scroll unrolling under crystal lights, codified now, ink still wet from prior seals. Jonah stood at her side, not subservient but equal in the frame. Captain Jonah Ree is no contaminant. I declare him my chosen partner, consort in alliance and blade. Murmurs erupted. Shock rippling spines, crests flickering doubt to dawning calculation. Kalor paled, spines retracting. Probes had already pierced his comm logs during the fray. Jonah's forensic multitasking from the chamber had flagged the threads. Exposed, Prince, Melara said, voice velvet over steel. Your Valak handler sought fracture. Mercs funded, priestess bribed. The Empire's proxy games end here. She activated the diplomatic array, broadcasting to Valak envoys. Withdraw your webs, or face sovereignty blockade. Our treaty stands, human integrated. Kaelor's faction crumbled under the weight. Arrests swift, Valak fleets peeling back from borders as diplomats conceded. Mylara faced her court, scepter raised. Here the new edict, succession council reformed. Interspecies unions enshrined, rights equal, bloodlines blended for strength unfractured. Whispers peaked, then stilled. She elevated Jonah before them all. Martial consort Re, bearer of Terran fire, share my throne, my wars. He met her eyes, that humble nod masking depth she'd only begun to fathom. Honored majesty, together. The court bent. Respect, not fear, threading their spines. Mylara felt the shift. Her authority, once solitary divine fire, now alloyed with his unyielding human core. Political costs loomed, priestly purges, noble exiles. But stability hardened, fleets loyal, borders secure. She was born to rule, and learned that true power is finding